All right, welcome to our Wednesday movement session. My name is Zoe Levine. If you're just now tuning in, last week I kind of switched what we were doing last week and this week. They're both really the same, and we had a small group last week, so I will kind of bring in the same ideas for this week. Which is we have been through at least 12 weeks of this, a lot of us. If you've been going from the beginning, even if you've missed things, it's totally fine. But I've been teaching for about 12 weeks. So last week we had a little mini check-in with how everyone's doing. I would like to do that here as well. And I want to do that while we're moving a little bit. So I'm trying to think, let's play. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of things to be playing with while we do a check-in. One of our favorite things from last week was not from last week, but from our 3 months we've been together so far. One of the favorite things that people have said is the snow globe. So I think I'm going to kind of talk us through both getting started as pressing the snow globe. I'll get us warmed up and started moving. I'm also going to have a little question of the question that's out there is going to be, what has started to shift for you? What even small changes have you started to see while you have been playing with these new ideas? So to get your shoulder started before I have that kind of open invite for unmuting and speaking with us today, I don't know if you remember this dolphin shoulder idea. That was another one of my favorites, where you kind of squeeze in, the opposite of that open wide, squeeze in, get really high, and then kind of widen out and lower and squeeze in and up, right? That's stress sort of thing. And then widen out. It's like you've got two different dolphins doing little like leaps up and out of the water. Your elbows can follow however they want to go. Just a nice little memory of, oh, right, my shoulders have width to them. It's a really fun little thing to play with before your snow globes. You can try to do it the other way around. I have a harder time sometimes, but kind of widening to go up and then scrunch in and drop down, widening to go up and scrunch in and drop down. And then I invite you to both start the snow globe action. Remember, this is as far wide as you can reach and kind of painting the world around you without popping your ribs up necessarily right now. There's a time and a place for that for a snow globe. So you can keep them down because it's a different support from underneath. As you do that, do any of you have something that you're up for sharing in terms of, you know what I've noticed? This feels different. And you can just unmute yourself and have a little moment here if you're up for it. Anybody have a little, hey, you know what I've noticed that's been different? A couple of you shared last week, but Laura, did you want to?
I think I'm just more aware of when I've been sitting for too long, when I haven't been moving, and I've been trying to think, okay, well, what feels stiff that I should stretch or move right now? So I'm just trying to, like, I don't have a set time. I talked about this last week, that I don't feel like I have a set time, that I feel like I'd be more intentional if I did, but just being aware and making movement happen when I'm like, okay, I've been sitting, what do I need to move?
Amazing. Rest your shoulders for a moment as we move on to possibly, if anyone else wants to speak. I think Jenny, you're there. I'm going to give us another thing to do, and Kelly will have you speak after Jenny. Play with, you don't have to have your speaking, but play with moving your either pelvis or spine. You can kind of do the cat-cow version of sitting, whatever feels good. You can let your arms move, but just play with moving your spine in whatever way. That could include some rib opening in the side bend, whatever you need. Start listening to your body. And Jenny, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I think similar to Laura, I definitely just have increased body awareness. Like I feel things, whereas before I just couldn't isolate, like, oh, this is where I'm feeling. And whenever there's idle time or like gap time in between meetings or waiting in line at the grocery store, I like use that time now to move. Whereas I used to just stand and look at my phone or whatever. And that's just becoming something I can do without really thinking about it that much. So.
Huge. That's huge. Anything that you've started doing without having to think about it too much and just being aware instead of having to like put a thought on top of that is huge. That's a big deal. And that's right where we're headed. So I love hearing that. All right. Jenny started to do this anyway, but start adding before we get Kelly to kind of say hi and share any form of twist that feels good to you. You don't have to go crazy. And you're noticing I'm still going to look at the camera, but in my twist. Whatever works for you, if you have a twisty chair. And then Kelly, if you wanted to share.
Sure, I have been thinking a lot about getting up and down from the floor more. So I stretch after I work out anyways, but then after not doing that initial stretch, later in the evening, getting down on the floor again and doing more, getting up and getting down. It's been like a nice check-in with my body.
Good. And I love the way you phrase that. It's a nice check-in with my body, because that ability will be easier on the days where you have space and you've created space, and it'll just be harder on the days where it's been a while, and that's fine too. When it's harder, it's just like, okay, great. I'm here now and I'm going to move around while I'm here. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good. And I'm going to give us one more. Let's actually stand up, and I'll still open the space for if anyone wants to share, but I'm going to get us up into my other favorite. I was saying, telling Laura in that realm of like, I don't know what to do. We have a lot on our kind of in our bag of tricks right now. And it's like, what should I do? So this hanging out could be, we've done a lot of stretching for the shoulders. So I'm kind of tempted to just kind of hang out here with either a little rocking, a little staying put, or a little kind of bending into the hips, whatever you like. And if there's anyone else, we could just do this. If there's anyone else that has anything that they wanted to add as a little 3 months in review, what you've taken so far, feel free to unmute and have a moment. I know some of you spoke last week, so we don't have to get to necessarily everybody. And if not, we'll just hang out here for a minute anyway. I notice how, just a reminder, this is an easy, hey, I'm reading something. Hey, I don't know, I'm thinking about something, or what else could you do while it's it could be very chill and hang out. Like, I'm tired and I'm reading some, I don't know, even partly, I don't know, a quick thing to read or check out or play on your phone, whatever you need. Great to open up those hips. All right, part of what I wanted to talk about, but again, in the same realm as I want to keep us moving in these ways and start playing with some new ideas in a chat way. So before we move out of this one, let's make sure we've at least had some moments of this kind of bending and straightening, saying hi to it's that squat position, right, that you're looking for as you kind of come down to the floor. Good. And it seems like most of you are in a place where you could start to play with getting up and down from the floor or sitting on the floor for a moment. So let's get you, and if you don't have access to the floor right now, you could just take your chair to its lowest possible setting, or find the lowest chair that you have nearby. Maybe sometimes our work attire, work pants aren't always conducive to getting all the way to the floor. But I do want to kind of show, as I give you some things to play with and do, I want to show some possibilities of bringing that squat home in addition to what we're working on now. So if you don't have any of the things I'm talking about, I just encourage any of our, and if you're in a chair, if you're on the floor, you can kind of be in a squat. If you're in as low as you can get chair, you can still play with finding your squat here in various ways, right? You can lean forward, you could take a forward bend while you're listening. You can move your spine. You've got the chair stretch where you get in the front of the hip. So I'm gonna give you a little kind of free play to find different folds, different angles of your hips, either if you're on the floor, if you're on your chair, But I'm gonna show you a couple of different ways to play with this squat, even if you can't get to the floor where you're at, or if you're playing on at home. So one thing, and you're still playing, is I'm just gonna do a little promotion for if you can't get down to the floor, finding a squat by elevating your feet and kind of hanging out in a different lean forward, finding your squat in this way. Right, so you could put pillows, books, blocks under your feet in the office or at home, not all the time. So sitting with your knees up high all the time is going to be irritating, but you could turn your chair into a squat if you can't get to the floor. So that's another way to go. And maybe it's sitting more upright, maybe your feet get higher, maybe this is enough to find that crease for a little bit, and then you take a break and get rid of them, right? So there's all the same, you can twist while you're hanging out in that squat. This could be on the floor. This position makes me think of, I'm a big fan. Have you ever heard of a squatty potty? Right. It's more ideal for any kind of relieving yourself bathroom wise to have your feet elevated, to be more in a squat, right? Ours is one of the cultures of the world that does not, and it's not ideal for any of our pelvic floor function, anything. It's just not an ideal position to be very upright like this doing our business. And this is another way to get a squat in at home, is to every time you go to the bathroom, have a little, it's a squatty potty, just elevates your feet. So it's kind of an easy way to get into a squat position during the day. Keep going where you're at, adding twists and side bends, whether you're down on the floor or not. I'm going to show you a few things about finding that squat again at home. When you are down on the floor, again, you know, you can be in your squats here on the floor. So that kind of thing, if it's accessible, is great. If it's not quite accessible to you, building higher and higher, we talked about that in floor sitting. So higher and higher and higher, hanging out here, again, coffee table work, it's part of floor sitting, play and practice. So you could just get higher and higher. I just want to show you the two other shapes that you can kind of see your squat in, because we've talked about a lot. If you have access, if you're at home and have access to this, you could do that now. Just gonna re-pin me here. Oh, I am pinned. So you could take a child's pose on the floor, which if you can't get to the floor, you could do just like we do on, you know, it's like a mini version of child's pose. Is just kind of hanging into your hips like we do for that happy hamstring squat. I just want to show, just in case it's part of your world, or could be, right? We don't get into this position at the office very much. If you're not getting on the floor, again, you can find kind of a more upright version, but child's pose, just keep in mind, is another version of a squat, or could be. Sometimes we hang out with that big curve, which is fine, time and a place, but you can also lengthen out your sits bones like we've been practicing and find that curve. It's a beautifully restorative place to hang out and just breathe. Remember, we've talked about breathing into the kidney space. This is an amazing place to do that if you have the time or the space and you're working on your squat in a completely relaxed position. So just offering that as a possibility. The other possibility, again, it's more for the at home. If you're in the office, you can continue to find squats up higher in your chair, lean forward, widening your legs. We've got this one. If you are at home and can lie down on the floor, again, I'm just showing for more home ideas. But really, this isn't just about the office. Notice you can find a squat. You can be lying in bed and hugging your knees into your chest. And remember, it's not just about the tail tucking under and up, but kind of opening out to really find that hip crease. It could be one, it could be both. All of these are still ways of finding the squat. You could do this standing if you had balance, right? Knee hugs into one shoulder, center of the chest, open wide, knee hugs in across toward the shoulder and open. It's hard to do standing, but if you have access, again, This could be before bed. This could be once you're on the floor because you're doing some floor sitting. Go ahead and come all the way up to standing if you've been sitting in your chair, or all the way down to the floor. Find a deep fold on your way up and come all the way up to standing. Bye, Kelly. And find yourself all the way down to the floor to whatever extent I try to put on, these are like stretchy elastic waistband, but like I could wear them to a work situation, pants, which I highly recommend. Find a way to get down to the floor or to your whatever's not quite the floor, a little bit higher. And just see if you can move around and figure out how else could you get up off the floor. Could you find some bends? Is it any easier? I know one of you were talking about last week, I can actually get up and down from the floor a bit easier. Just see any places that you can get up and down to the floor a little differently. You're going to find some deep creases, right? As you're figuring out how do I get off the floor, sometimes you'll have one knee up and one knee down. That might get a pretty deep crease. And just see, like, where is that crease? And once you have that crease, you have better access to the strength of your butt, which is going to become important. We'll find a few ways to access that. Come back one more time and back up one more time. Maybe you find a different way. Maybe the other knee is up, other knee down. And even to go slow on your way up and down, to figure like what is happening during the transition. There's wiggle room, right? There's room to play or move or figure out where your hands might go, or if there's a way to do it with no hands, right? Find your butt on the way up when you do it with no hands. Excellent. And let's finish with a calf stretch as part of just our general review. Standing tall. You have your rolled up blanket. If you're in the office and don't have that, you could stack some, I don't know, reams of paper might work too. So just something that you could put the front of your foot on, where I would cut off my head, pretty good. Front of your foot, heel on the floor. The other foot can keep kind of walking it forward to find some space. And remember, if a lot of that floor stuff isn't quite there for you, all of the things that we've done so far are making that easier and easier to do, right? So picking up any of those things will help the getting up and down from the floor. And then the getting up and down from the floor will help the strength that you need to kind of hold a more ideal alignment, more stacked, easeful alignment. Remembering that breath into the kidney space here. You've already found some movement in space in your shoulders and your ribs, your spine, your hips. Just kind of ending with a little space and length in that back line that we've been working on. Take a moment off of your stretch apparatus, whatever you're using, just feel a different side to side. That one side really kind of grounded in there. And then do the same thing on the other side. And then I'd say as we're hanging out here, another way to bring this squat idea home, besides all of the getting to the floor ways, the knowing that child's pose is also kind of a squat, knowing that hugging your knees into your chest in any way at any angle is part of that building of the squat. The other thing is looking out for how and when you need that strength in your everyday life. For me, getting into the laundry, like it's all kind of boxed into a corner and low to the ground. So there's ways to kind of, it's not a perfect squat, but kind of getting deep to squat down and feel that stretch while I'm getting the clothes in and out of the washer and dryer. When you're reaching for little things in cabinets, could you, instead of doing that kind of spine curl, could you instead start to get low into the deep crease to grab that dish or the appliance or whatever you're getting out of the cabinet. Does that make a little bit of sense? For start to look for ways you could or even already do need or use that squat position or shape. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yes, I've actually noticed that already. Just bending more that way and squatting down to do more things.
And that's huge, because if you're finding that, that's what people say when it's like lift from your butt and your core, not from your back. Your spine does not want to do that kind of work. It's a great scaffolding and support system. It is not meant to do the heavy lifting. So if you're finding the folds in those situations, that's when we get less of the, oh, I threw my back out. And so that's what, if you all know some more people in the field doing more of this physical labor sort of work, starting to get the work out to that crew, and maybe a lot of them are watching the videos. If you are, shout out to you and bring me questions of how this is working for you. All right. Anything else before I let you go? Great.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks,
See you
Diane.
next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.